Today on This Is My Journey, we are diving into the part of transformation that doesn't get talked about enough. What happens when the weight comes off? So here in the UK, it's estimated that around 1.4 million people are now accessing GLP-1 medications privately through online pharmacies. And that is compared to just around 200,000 who are getting it through the NHS every single month. So that is a sign of how people are now taking back control of their health. But it also highlights something really important. While the medication, can help you lose weight, it's what comes after that truly defines, your health and confidence and your future. Because the journey just doesn't end when the scale stops moving. And in many ways, that is where it really starts. So my guest today knows this better than anyone. So let's roll the intro and get into it. Welcome to This Is My Journey, the podcast where real people share real stories of transformation, resilience, and growth. I'm Marc, and after navigating my own path through major lifestyle change, I created this space to open up honest conversations around identity, mindset, and what it really takes to evolve. So along the way, we'll also hear from professionals, from pharmacists to psychologists and fitness experts who help us make sense of the science and support behind these journeys. So whether you're just starting out, deep in the process, or you're finding your footing after big change, you are not alone. This is your place. This is my journey. Let's walk it together. Welcome back, everyone. And today I'm joined by someone whose journey has inspired many people online on TikTok and Instagram, including myself. Brandon G, known by most of you as Brand Gets Fitter. Brandon's story is a reminder that transformation isn't a straight line. So after losing 50 kilos, which is around 8 stone, on a GLP-1, he's continued to evolve, shifting his focus from weight loss to strength, confidence, and just overall wellness. He shares openly about the challenges of this journey, body image, and the mental shift that comes massively with transformation. And today we're going to talk about life after the loss when you're nearly at goal or on maintenance, and how to rebuild, refocus, just keep growing long after you hit that goal weight. So, Brandon, thank you so much for joining me today.
That's my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Marc. And I've seen your journey online, and like you said, it's a massive inspiration. So also, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be on today.
Oh, thank you so much. For anyone who hasn't yet come across your page or doesn't know you at this point, I know many people will know you because you're everywhere on social media. Could you start maybe telling us just a little bit about you, about yourself, what's inspired you to, start sharing your journey online and where you are today in terms of being on a GLP-1?
Of course. So for you don't know, my name is Brandon. I started originally back in January of this year, so only 10 months ago. And it all started from, it's quite a strange story, but I was sitting in my car and I was with my partner and she was like, "You need a sleeve." And I was like, "I know, I've been thinking about getting tattoos for a really, really long time." She was like, "No, Brandon, you need to get a sleeve." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And I felt so upset and I felt so hurt. And it was really the first time anyone's ever actually said, "You know what, Brandon, you really need to lose weight." And at first I was upset and I was sad and I was like, "How can you say this to me?" But over time I was like, you know what? You might be onto something here. And it is definitely time where I do make a change. And at that time, I was like, look, I don't really want to go straight into the bariatric options. I've had family members who have done it. I know it works well and they've never had problems. And I'm always very open-minded. But I sat there and I said, look, let me look in to see if there is any alternatives. And I saw all different options at the time for GLPs, and I didn't really know much about them. So I was like, let me do some more research. And then that's obviously when I found a certain GLP. And I started from there on the 16th of January. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to hold myself accountable. If I don't do this, and I've told people, my mom, family members, my partner, I'm going to diet this time. I'm going to lose weight. Yeah. And every single time they're like, "I'm so sick of you saying this." So I decided to open my TikTok account and I just started posting. And at the beginning, it was just updates, like how my life is going, like how I'm reacting. And slowly over time, people started saying, "Hey, can you post more about this?" Or like, "What happened with this?" And eventually I just started posting and posting and posting. And it got to the point where it was the first message I ever got where it was like, "Hey, dude, I started this because I saw your video." And at the point, it wasn't like, I want to do this and get so many followers and things, but it was just that one person I knew I helped. The one single person, the followers didn't matter, the likes didn't matter. The one person I saw and I was like, this is what I want to do. So I started at that point. And then I started losing weight. Since then, I've lost, 8 stone on GLP-1s. Since my highest weight, I've lost over 10 stone. And I did put a little bit on recently, but I'm sure we'll get into that in a bit.
No, that's crazy. And do you know what? I can relate so much to what you're saying there in terms of, I think we all have that moment at the very, very start, sort of catalyst that sort of led us to starting on this journey. And you took that well, the comment at the start from your partner, but
I didn't at the start. I promise you that, Mark. When I was in the car, I almost told her to get out on the motorway. Honestly,
you've done absolutely amazing, and losing like 50 kilos, like that's madness. What has been the most surprising part of life after losing that?
the most surprising part for me, Mark, if I'm completely honest with you, is there are certain things, obviously, the bodily image and fitting in clothes and all that is so exciting because I can actually go high street shopping and not
Yeah,
like buy stuff.
yeah,
But the main thing was noticing that I don't get out of breath at work. And that was the biggest one for me because I remember my job is very physical. I've never
yeah,
actually said it, so I'm going to say it. I'm a specialist cleaner. So I do a
okay,
lot of like heavy duty cleaning,
yeah,
commercialized buildings, like massive things, sometimes with
yeah,
heavy machinery. And a lot of times, sometimes I do 10 to 20, 30,000 steps a day. And when I was that weight, I really struggled and it was really hard for me to actually do it. And now, where I still get tired, just general, like, exhausted, I don't have the feet aches. I don't have the back aches. I don't have
yeah.
the feeling like I ran a marathon constantly. And I think that was the most thing that actually surprised me was although sometimes you look in the mirror, you may not see or feel the changes physically. If you actually focus hard enough, you can actually see massive difference.
Them non-scale victories are just massive when you're on this journey, and I think your work is your life. So, to have such a change in how you feel at work and how you are able to work is amazing. And obviously there's, like you just mentioned, there's so many other positives that come from this journey, and definitely I can relate to the going into the shops and buying clothes and stuff like that. It definitely is a good one, and the feeling that you feel after being able to maybe get into clothes and stuff that maybe you haven't been able to even try on. For me, I always say like going into Zara or anything like that, which I would never went into before because they never did my size, and then going in now and I'm like literally just buying rings around me, and it's just
Oh, it was awful, especially when I first realized I can fit into high street clothes. Mark, the amount of money I spent, I can't. And the thing is, I bought stuff and I would post a video and I knew it didn't fit me. And
yeah,
I always said it in the video, I don't care if it doesn't fit perfect yet. The point is, I can now go into Zara, H&M, and
yeah,
actually try these clothes on. And it's not even the biggest size I have to try
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Whereas before, I didn't even dream of going to River Island or
yeah,
Top Man or anything like that.
yeah. No, I can totally relate. You've lost crazy amount of weight, and maintaining it. I know you've mentioned just earlier there, just obviously we'll get into it now, but what has changed for you mentally once you reach the point where, that scale sometimes stops moving and, starts again, and you maybe regain, there's a lot of, I know I've felt difficulty with that, mentally. How's that been for you?
You know what? It is sometimes it's a struggle, especially when you've got not to talk about the social media presence and all of that. When you
Yeah,
have people who are either messaging you saying, "Look, I'm struggling as well. I need your help," but then mentally you're struggling and
yeah,
you're in that sort of mindset of, "How can I help someone if I don't know how to help myself right now?"
mhm,
And it is difficult. But there was an analogy I heard the other day, and it really sat with me. Is that if you rode a bike from Edinburgh to London and you fell off halfway, you wouldn't go back to Edinburgh to start again.
yeah,
So I always try to keep that mindset. And one thing I always try to say to people is when you start a weight loss journey, especially on a GLP, you need to make sure you're changing stuff. And I know a lot of people will go into it nonchalantly and they will manage to lose the weight without really caring too much because they naturally just stop eating rubbish. They naturally moved a bit more. But when you're hyper fixated on it, especially if you're focusing so much on the scales, when I first started, I weighed myself daily. I was, checking to make sure like my measurements were dropping. And it is very easy to get into that hyperfixation state where you focus on nothing but then results. And it's so natural. It is because you're basically dedicating your life to losing weight. And regardless of what's going on around you, all that matters is that weight loss. And my biggest piece of advice and the biggest thing I would say, as long as you're building healthy habits and you're staying consistent, whether you fall off for a couple of weeks or a couple of days, it doesn't matter as long as you know, one, you were in the wrong for doing so, and two, know how to remanage and how to get
yeah.
back on track. And that's why I always say healthy habits will build long-term results.
Really, really sound advice, and completely agree with everything you said there. I really love that analogy too. It sort of lends itself well to, this is a journey, and I think when you're on that journey, Yeah. You're not going back to the start. You just have to, if you do have a little backtrack, you just need to keep pushing forward
But
and
it
remember that.
does feel like it because I
Yeah.
know when we switched over to recently with all that thing going on and I
Mhm.
switched medications and I knew instantly it was the biggest for me personally, and this is nothing against the medication. It was the biggest mistake for me because it wasn't even a scientific reason. It wasn't
Mhm.
because I don't think it worked. It was because purely my mental state knew what I did originally worked.
Yeah.
And switching feels like I sort of fell off that bike and I was like,
Mhm.
what am I doing? Like,
Mhm.
and that's what a lot of people will do. And a lot of people that message me saying, look, I was doing this and now I've changed this and I'm not getting the results. And it's always like, why fix it if it's not broken? I know sometimes it's out of your hands, sometimes pricing or
Yeah.
financial, or which is completely understandable. But if it
Mhm.
is within the sort of means and you can, then I always say, look, if it's not broken, and I learned that recently, when I
Yeah.
switched over, I put a stone and a half back on. I've managed to lose half a stone since I swapped back. But that was because it wasn't because of specific medication. And that's what
Yeah.
I've been trying to say to you. It was because of my mentality. It was
Mhm.
because of my mindset, because I fell out of routine.
Yeah.
And if I was still in the routine and I was being more confident and I was, going at it still, it wouldn't have happened. But because I let myself fall out of routine, it's so hard to get back into it. So hard.
Yeah. No, routine is such a massive part of it. And it kind of relates to the next question that I kind of want to ask you. So, the physical part of this journey is hard. The mental part is even harder. I can, vouch for that. So, how long did it take you for your mind to catch up with the changes in your body? And just to caveat that, I suppose, from my own point of view, it's something I'm still working on daily. So, how's that been for you?
100%. I think my main issue is because I've always accepted the fact I'm going to have corrective surgery for my loose skin. So, which, you know what, and I always try to be positive to people about, because look, I was 25 and a half stone. I'm not going to expect the, six pack, stretch marks after
Yeah,
losing
yeah,
weight. But obviously, the more you lose weight and the more you see your skin change, mentally for me, it did get harder.
yeah.
And it was a contributing factor to when I kind of fell off a little bit and took a break from social media. And
Hmm.
because it's easy to sit there and record a video for a minute, 2 minutes and say, right, this is how I feel thing. And then when the camera's off and you sit there and you're like, this really sucks. First of all, how am I going to raise, thousands and thousands of pounds to do this? And
Yeah,
how am I going to be able to do this and work at the same time? Because a lot of times, people forget we have real lives, we have real jobs, and we have real things. It's not
yeah,
obviously with this sort of social media stuff, you do have opportunities and you are able to do certain things and that it does help. But it's still, I can't just go tomorrow and go and get all my loose skin removed, without any effects on my life. So
yeah,
the mental strain is definitely a big part, I will say, especially when you're trying your best. And I love it, don't get me wrong. I love having the ability to help people.
hmm,
But one thing that always gets me, and it shouldn't, is when someone messages me saying, hey, I've been doing it for 5 months. I saw your videos. I'm not losing any weight.
yeah,
And I try and help. And it's like, you kind of feel that little bit of guilt
yeah,
inside. Like, oh, I should have helped you more. I should
yeah,
have, try and done more. And
yeah,
it is, I mean, but look, I've learned that unfortunately you can't help everyone in the world. You can only try your best.
yeah,
And I am, like you said, still working on it mentally, especially with the physical changes of my body. It took me months and
yeah,
months and months and months to even see a change. But then when I started noticing it, looking at old videos and seeing my face structure has changed and everything else is starting to, I started to then realize, look, it's a process. It does
yeah.
take time, but we're getting there. We're getting there.
Agree with everything you're saying there, and it's just something. It is something you just have to work on, you know, day to day. And I'll never look in the mirror and be able to process the fact that I'm this person now. And yeah, I think there's lots of things there you've said, and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people. And yeah, some good advice there too. So in terms of, you mentioned there about, building habits and stuff and all that there, these foundations are really, really, really key to longevity in terms of, us being able to maintain weight and stuff going forward. What does that look like for you now, especially when it comes to like fitness and routine and nutrition and all that stuff?
Yeah, so if I'm completely honest with you, I do kind of still take it like a day at a time. I'm one of those
Yeah.
people that if I try plan too far ahead and I try to do too much, I kind of crumble under the pressure. So I am trying to still take it. And that's one thing, like, it goes to show, like, it doesn't matter how much weight you lose, you still need to sort of take it slow. And
Mhm.
I personally believe it is that, like, no matter how much, once I hit my final goal weight, I've always said to people, don't sort of hyper fixate on certain things. Don't you don't have to eat the same thing every day. You don't need to force yourself to eat certain things just because other people are eating them.
Mhm.
And I think as long as you're building, a balanced diet within your maintenance calories and building it long term, you're allowed to have your cheat days. You're allowed to have days off. Having the one day where you go out with friends and socialize you're not going to gain any weight. All you're going to gain is more social confidence and
Mhm.
better friendships. And I think that's one thing people forget with the whole weight loss thing is when you were overweight, your social life wasn't as great as it's going to be now.
Mhm.
Just factual. Your life in general, your quality of life is going to be better now. So you still have to enjoy them benefits. It's not always about the scales. And I think as long as you're building long-term, sustainable habits, if you like going gym, go gym. If you don't like going gym, go for a jog. Not everyone likes the gym. I hate
No,
the gym
me too.
personally. It's not because I don't want to go and I'm lazy. It's just because I don't like lifting weights.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just,
yeah.
it's not entertaining to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So as long as you find a habit, something that you enjoy, football, whatever, even
Yeah.
if it's just doing something like walking, I
Yeah.
think at long term you'll be all right.
Yeah. No, that's what it was for me. Like walking was my exercise part of this journey. And I
Yeah,
think,
100% walking. All I can say is if you struggle with fitness and you struggle with wanting to go gym and do anything, walking is 100% what catapulted my results and
yeah.
helped me get where I am today. A million percent. And if you haven't get something like a smartwatch or something
Yeah.
that can track your steps, because trust me, it's really motivational saying, oh, I
Yeah.
hit my 10,000, hit my
Yeah.
15,000. And it really, really does boost. And if you focus on that every day and look, let's do that, you're going to stop focusing on the bad foods and your diet so
Mhm.
much as well. And I think that did really help me.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. And I think, you know, for me, I can totally relate to everything you're saying there because, I am not a lover of gym. I just, a lot of it is prima donnas that are, doing the weights and posing and whatever. And I know that's in my head. That's probably the misconception that I have of the gym, but it's just not for me. I don't enjoy it in terms of that. But yeah, it doesn't have to be. I think everybody thinks it has to be the gym and it doesn't have to be that at all. It's just however you
100%.
can get movement in.
Yeah, my partner has a ball at home where she
Yeah.
does workout routines with that. Like
Yeah.
you can do things, and that's what I always say. If you're even if you're not able to go walking, you're not as mobile. I see people on TikTok lives
Yeah.
doing like sit down dancing or
Yeah.
just do something within your means, and that's
Yeah.
that's 100% the way forward.
And that's it. For anybody that's just maybe thinking about starting out in this journey, maybe they're nervous about exercising, afraid of the gym. I know we've kind of just touched on it there, maybe struggling to move, what advice would you give them now about starting in terms of confidence and just moving?
You know what? One thing that helped my confidence and helped me not really care about the sort of real world of losing weight is posting on social media.
Yeah.
It's posting on TikTok because you're never more vulnerable than when you're posting on social media for anyone to see. I don't know who sees my videos, everyone can see them. And I feel like one, it helps you keep accountability, even if you're not doing it to, give advice. Or it's literally just to give yourself accountability to track. I know so many people who just post daily updates, not even with their face in it, not even with their videos, just how they're feeling. And then you have a community.
Yeah.
If you're worried about starting, that's one thing I always say is speak to people, me, Mark, anyone, a lot. And that's the one thing with this community. Everyone has time for each other.
Mm.
Okay, not everyone, but majority of people have time for each other.
Yeah.
So if you find people, don't hesitate. I get so many DMs, oh, you're probably not going to respond to this. I do. I respond to it.
Yeah.
Maybe I've missed some. My apologies. I get a
Yeah.
lot. I'm sure
Yeah.
Mark does as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we try as much as we can,
Yeah.
and that's one thing, even just making friends, it doesn't have to be creators, just people, people who are doing it. And that will definitely help you, especially with learning what they're doing. And one thing I'll say is don't take what everyone says by gospel. Don't listen to it. If they tell you to eat a certain calories and stuff like that, don't listen to that. Work your own way out, but definitely use it as inspiration because that will definitely help motivate you in the real
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. No, again, solid advice there. I can relate to what you're saying there in terms of, starting my social accounts and stuff. It was all to hold myself accountable and almost just like a diary of achievements and progress. And it is good from your own point of view just to look back and see because you don't always see what you have lost and having that diary, even if it's not even social media, like I even think like journaling or writing things down or
100%.
just
Yeah.
documenting things in your phone or anything like that, I think is really good to see how far you've come because when you look back on all that stuff, like I look back on videos from like a year and a couple of months ago, and it's crazy to see the difference in how you look. And even, it's so funny. I got a message quite recently, and you've maybe found this too. People who've watched videos from like really, really early on when you started your journey, and they're like, "Oh, you're like a completely different person now. Even how you speak is different because you just feel lighter, and because you're so much more confident, and it's a nice thing to have a visual of being able to look back and seeing all that. But yeah, totally.
Yeah, even if you put them on private, or like you said, if it's just
Yeah,
in a journal, like
yeah,
for you personally, I think definitely, I always say, look, even if it's measurements, pictures, photos, whatever, just have some sort of record, because you will look back and say, well, if you told me a month ago I lost 4 pounds, I'd be over the moon. So
yeah,
it's very easy to get caught up in like the negatives rather
yeah,
than going, you know what, I have actually lost 4 pounds. I am making a difference, you know?
yeah. Sort of moving on, we've touched on it there already, but like the emotional side of transformation, and that can be really, really tough for anybody that's lost any sort of weight, let alone the types of weight that you have lost. So things like loose skin, body confidence, just even the judgment from others. How have you learned to deal with that on your own journey?
The way I've learned to deal with it is I look back at photos of when I was 25 and a half stone, struggling to breathe. You know, my daughter was just about to be born, you know, and I'm looking at pictures of me at her baby shower. And I remember going to buy a suit and I had to go to 9 shops to try and find a shirt because I couldn't fit into it. And then I'd take the little problems I have now, i.e., loose skin and like little problems looking at myself feeling a bit uncomfortable, and I go, how uncomfortable did he feel at that time? How uncomfortable
Yeah.
was he where he had to go, where he embarrassed himself in 7 shops or 9 shops and couldn't find a shirt? You know, he's texting family members like, has anyone got a size 6XL shirt? And then you sit there and you're like, the problems I have now aren't as big. You know, yeah, some loose skin, cool. Yeah, some stretch marks that I don't want and some sagginess that I don't want. But then I look back and I go, well, would I rather be like this, or would I rather be 25 and a half stone again? You know, not being able to take my top off, not being able to fit into clothes, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all of these problems, you know. I don't know how close, and I say it, I've said it in videos, I don't know how close I was to, you know, dying.
Mhm.
Like, let's be honest here.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen your videos, you know, where you said similar.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was 26, well, at the time, you know, 25, 26, and now I'm 27, weight I haven't been at since I was 17.
Yeah.
So it's like, how many years have I gained back for the sake of some loose skin? And I think it's always one thing about with loose skin and saggy skin is, even if it takes a couple of years, you can always save up and get corrective surgery. You can always save up and, you know, do things. I've seen yourself recently. You know,
Yeah.
I've got the pro
Yeah.
fit coming in, Marc.
Yeah. Yeah.
I need to see you score. They did an excellent job. But you know, things like this can be fixed. It's not
Yeah.
the end of the world. It can be fixed, and it is more about your health and more about. I'd rather have saggy skin for the next 50 years than be what I was and only live for the next 5.
But all that stuff that you're saying there, like that stuff is fixable. If you have the money behind it and all that there, you know, you can get all that fixed. Not being here, you can't fix. So,
You
you
can't
know,
fix it. You
yeah,
can't fix dying at 30.
yeah,
Sorry to be blunt. You can't fix dying at
no,
30 and leaving your family. You can't.
yeah,
And that's the way I see it, is that it's so easy because you look back and it's like, well, it's the past. You're not that big
yeah,
anymore. This is your
yeah,
problem now. But
yeah,
if I didn't get to where I am now, I would still have that problem, you
mhm,
know? And that's one thing. People get so fixated in the current, and it's like, well, yeah, I know I've lost this weight, and why haven't I got a six pack yet? And it's like, it's so easy to get caught up. You need to just think of where you started. And I've seen so many people that, you know, are doing so well and lost so much weight. And I do look, and it's, you know, I look back to me and I'm like, I was so close to not being here. And I see all these problems. Obviously, you still get the times where it's like, you know, sad, and it's like, hey, I wish I didn't have this. But then when you actually take a step back and look at a bigger picture, you understand
yeah.
the scale of it. It's nothing. Skin is nothing when you look at
Mhm.
that.
It's emotional hearing you talk all about that, because I see so much of me in what you're saying, and you know, it's I if there's anybody that can relate to every word that you're saying, it is me right now, and it's and so many other people listening to this. I'm sure it will be exactly the same, and I think, you know, it's a scary thought, but you know, at the end of the day, what you've done and what you've achieved so far is absolutely amazing, and you should be so proud of yourself of getting to where you've got to, and continue to go, because the longevity in terms of your life that you have gained as a result of that is just priceless. Relating to all that, support is such a massive part of this journey, because we couldn't do what we've done without support of people, friends, family, social media, all that. So, who have been them people that have really kept you grounded and motivated through your journey through all them highs and lows?
If I'm honest with you, at the start,
Yeah.
my partner started, I did a little series of it on TikTok. You know, she wasn't as big as me, but she was uncomfortable with her weight. And we both started the exact same time. She's now in maintenance. She's lost over 4 stone. She
Amazing.
reminds me of it every day. Thank you very much. But she's done an amazing job. And for the first, you know, 4 or 5 months, it didn't take her long. Once she got down to maintenance, she kind of balanced her diet out. I'm still kind of losing. So it was sad to see it sort of, like, we had a little battling going on. It was like, if I lost more weight than her, it was obviously joking because it's whatever, but we'd rub it in each other. And it was just that little bit of friendly competition.
Yeah.
But Also, and I keep going back to it, it's just the daily messages I get, and I'm sure you get them as well, of wow, you've done amazing.
Yeah.
And while yes, getting thousands of them kind of numbs it out sometimes, still having that one person that messages you and goes, man, you're doing so well. You've helped me change my life. And and I'm sure I've had so many people who've gone, dude, I've watched your videos like 7 months ago. I just hit my goal weight. And I'm like, that's crazy. The fact that you've watched me, just a regular guy who's trying to lose weight, and you've now hit, and it's so motivating for me. And
Yeah.
when I sit there and I'm like, trying to, I fancy Chinese or I fancy chocolate, and by all means, have your cheat days. But when I'm getting into that spiral and I'm like, hey, I've sat there and I've motivated someone
Yeah.
to do this and they have done it, why should I not do it? Do you know what I mean? You can't motivate someone to do it and then,
Yeah.
be a hypocrite. And
Yeah.
that's one thing I've tried to live by, because just seeing, and it's one thing as well, people like you, Mark, and I've literally been watching all these people, all of like my Manjaro friends from when I first
Yeah.
started shrink. And every time it feels like I open TikTok, everyone looks better, everyone looks healthier, everyone looks happier. And I'm seeing people, I've hit my goal weight. And it's like, crazy to me, because when I first started following all of these people, they were still overweight, they were still struggling, didn't really know what to do, and it just shows it just takes time and
Yeah.
patience. And once you have that patience, the results will come. And
Yeah.
I promise that, just be patient in a calorie deficit, and the
Yeah.
result will come. Honestly,
Yeah. I think that's the biggest problem most people find. Like, people just, it's just human nature. Like when you start a diet or anything like this, you just want to be at the end right away. And
yes.
I always say, you know, you'll get there eventually. It doesn't matter how long it takes. Just keep pushing through. Just keep pushing. Like, yes, it maybe went faster for me at the start. It didn't go fast at the end. And,
Oh, it's not going
you're
fast now.
experiencing the same thing. Yeah.
The first week on GLP-1, I lost 14 pounds. And obviously, weight bloat, I know that. But at the time, I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to be skinny this time next month,
Yeah.
And you then realize over time, the 1 pound, the 2 pounds, the normal weight loss, the healthy weight loss, the sustainable weight loss, even if you lost 2 pounds a week, which is the healthy range for a year, that's over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
There's only realistically a handful of people that need to lose over 100 pounds.
Yeah.
And them people, even if it takes you a year and you're 30 years old, it didn't take you a year to get to where you are. It took you many, many years. And the same with me, it took me 5, 6, 7 years of horrific eating habits to get to where I am. So if I can manage that in a year or 2 years, I've managed to eradicate 7 years of bad choices in 2 years, 7 years of bad health problems, potential health problems, 7 years of bad habits in a year or two. And I feel personally, now that I've been on it a long time, Mark, the longer it takes you to lose the weight, I personally feel the more successful you'll be at the end, in the long term, because
Yeah.
you've spent that time building habits, a better relationship with food. When I first started, in a month or two in, I was over the world. I lost 3 stone, but was that sustainable to keep doing that every single month? No, it wasn't. And I quickly learned that. And when I switched weight loss medications, basically, I learned that. I learned that I didn't build the right habits. I put weight back on and I should have done more. And that's where I'm now back on my journey. I've still got around about 1.5 stone to lose before I hit my final goal weight. And then after that, we'll see what happens. I don't really know. Maybe I'll start having to load up the gym again, Mark. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have to get the muscles. But
Yeah.
so far, it's been great. It's been I've loved this journey. Like, absolutely loved it. And I think just having the community around us, Mark, has definitely helped. 100%.
Yeah, no, definitely. That support from everybody online and stuff has been key to my success too. And I definitely think I'm not saying it's by no means been an easy journey or anything like that. And you're saying that too. There is still the down days, the struggles, and all that there. But you do have to keep picking yourself up, and it is easier, I would say, to push yourself forward. Whereas before, not being on this medication, I would have been, you would have been right back to the Chinese's, back to, wherever, McDonald's, whatever. And then that would be me back on a downward spiral. And yeah, I just find being on this, if I do have them cheat days, I find it easier to get back on track again and stuff. So yeah, we are nearly ready to wrap up, but I've just two more questions for you. So one is, if someone listening to this right now who's reached their goal but feels lost on what comes next, what's that biggest piece of advice you would give them for staying consistent and building confidence again?
Your whole idea of losing weight was to get to where you are now. So if you are where you want to be, just keep pushing at the current rate you are. If you've got new habits, you're going to the gym, you've been enjoying the gym, you're doing things now that helps you lose the weight, or you're at that goal weight from doing certain things, just keep it going. It's so easy to hit a goal weight and take a step back. It's kind of like a bodybuilder when they win a competition, they go and
Yeah.
stuff their face with McDonald's. You don't need to see it like that. You don't need to see it in a way of, oh, I've hit my goal weight, now I can go back. You've spent all this time building, go into maintenance. I'm a massive fan of maintenance, especially if you've been on a higher dose and you're trying to wean off it. I wouldn't say cold turkey it at all. That's my opinion,
Yeah.
not medical advice, obviously. But I would definitely say, look, if maintenance is an option for you, do that while continuing to build the habits. And that's the topic for this whole thing is keeping on top of the habits you built. Because so once you fall out, and I fell out of my routine and I stopped doing what I usually did. And the weight can really creep. And because you're not focusing on your weight loss, you're not focusing on your scales. The time goes past really quick compared to when you are focusing on the scales.
Yeah.
When I did daily weigh-ins, each day felt like a year. But the last couple of months where I switched and switched back, it just happened so fast and bam, I put on 1.5 stones. And it's like, just take it easy. One bad day, 2 bad days isn't going to be the end of it. Remember to enjoy your social life and just remember what you learned over this whole time and you should be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really, really good advice.
But don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. If you're overthinking it, that is what will cause you to gain the weight. It will. Just stay doing what you've been doing. You've done it so far. There's no reason why you can't maintain.
Yeah, no, that's really inspirational words there. And, I would totally back everything you said there. I think it's just keep pushing forward. You're going to have them days that you maybe feel like you're going backwards, but, just keep looking forwards. And
just remember, if you start cycling from Edinburgh, fall off halfway, you don't have to go back to Edinburgh. You can carry on going.
Yeah, no, I love that. So, yeah, really just sort of finish up. Obviously, anybody that maybe doesn't know you or follows you, they fully know you now because you've let us into a lot there. And yeah, just where can people find you? And just on a final note, what is kind of next for you?
So yeah, of course, you can find me on TikTok at Brian Gets Fit, and you can find me on Instagram, Brian Gets Fitter, purely because my main Instagram was banned for absolutely no reason. And I've always said to people, be careful with what you post on social media regarding to weight loss. You have to be very, very careful because sometimes they will just nuke your account. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram, please do. I'm trying to get the account built back up. But what's next for me, Mark, if I'm honest with you? I want to, hit my goal weight. I want to get back down to my goal weight. And I would like to build some muscle. I don't want to just lose all the weight and, feel weak. I want to build it up. And I think what I want to do in the future, Mark, is help motivate people who I used to be. And I think that resonates a lot with you.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. That's why I still post so often. That's why I still try and inspire, because I wish I had someone like you, Mark, when I first started, when I was sitting there and I had that voice to someone who has done it, someone to tell me it's possible. And I feel like without TikTok, social media, I didn't have that. So I want to be that voice of the people, similar to what you're doing now, and keep inspiring people to make the better choices.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for for the kind words. It's very flattering, and I have no doubt that everything you're doing on social media and inspiring is inspirational. And anybody that doesn't follow you, I really encourage everybody to follow you on Instagram and TikTok, because you do see videos on social media, and there's a lot of people out there that just there's the controversial videos and all that there. But for me, what works best is the straight talking, just say it how it is and doing this journey the right way. And that's what your account is. So I'd really encourage anybody to go follow you. And yeah, all that is left for me to say is thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for sharing your journey and where you are now with me and everybody listening. It's been really inspirational listening to you. And yeah, I wish you all the best in the future. And who knows, maybe get you back for a season 2 once you hit your goal.
Yeah, maybe I have to come over to Northern Ireland and join you personally.
That would be good. That would be good.
Well, no, thank you so much for having me, Mark. Thank you to everyone who's listened today. And yeah, let's see what the future brings.